What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of Malignant, the newest film from director James Wan. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome, hit that like button, as well as commenting below any videos you watch, including this one. Okay, everyone, as you see in my thumbnail, it does say Ending Explains, but I actually have not reviewed this film yet, so I will put the Ending Explains later on. Look down in the description where I'll have the kind of timestamps so you can go to each location. And so Malignant is about a character named Madison, who's played by Annabelle Wallis. She is a woman that is pregnant. She has an abusive husband, as most of these horror films do. And one night she is hurt by her husband, and in the process she starts having visions of people that are kind of important to the story who are being chased by this entity. For instance, her husband is killed by this entity and so on and so forth. And in the process, she's also being kind of looked upon by the Seattle Police Department, who, of course, is the main character is played by George Young, who plays Kakoa. And everything that starts to happen starts to explore not only Madison's past, but everything that has kind of leaned up to the moment where this entity is starting to, kill people that may involve her past and whatnot. And so with that said, that's kind of non-spoiler as possible when it comes to this film, because this movie gets pretty wild as it moves along. But James Wan, as like I said, is a director that started out in Saw with Lee Whannell. He's a guy that literally rose through the ranks, creating some of the most iconic, decent horror films in the last 15, 20 years. He's a director that has a very interesting style to what he creates and how he creates it. And this movie is no different. It's a movie that has a lot of interesting style when it comes to camera movements. There's a lot of above the top shots when it's like looking through like a maze type of scenario. He loves subtle, slow, and pan ins on the camera with the dolly. He loves moving around the room pretty quickly, like if you remember Saw. But it's a movie that is creating a new villain, a new entity, someone you could put in like Halloween Horror Nights as a new house. And that's what makes this movies like these very interesting, because when it comes to James Wan's characteristics, the people he works with, he is a guy that has a very interesting, distinct vision, a very interesting, distinct look into what makes people scared, what makes people horrified. And so with this new take, with this new entity, with this new creature, whatever you want to call it, he's creating a new kind of jigsaw, I guess you can say, in a lot of aspects. But the question remains, though, is this a strong enough film to kind of fit in his oeuvre of horror films? And once again, like a lot of his movies, I'm very, very mixed upon, to be fairly honest. I think this movie's last 25, 30 minutes are some of the most wild stuff I've ever seen him do since Saw. It's some crazy, crazy revelations, some crazy in-your-face gore. It's so insane in how it presents itself, but it's pure James Wan. It's what James Wan's strengths are. It's what he's known for, which is being very visual, being very arresting, and being very cool at what he does. And it's just a very kind of cool type of thing to watch for the last 25 minutes. The stuff that leads up to there, the kind of, as the story starts unfolding like that onion, I think is really B-grade level material. It's not great. The dialogue is really hammy and haphazard. I think some of the character moments in this movie are really terrible. There's a point where a doctor goes, "It's time to take out the cancer," and the way she looks at the camera and how serious and how goofy the dialogue is just the simple fact of some of the stuff I think is a detriment to who James Wan is as a director and the writers he works with, because it really has a sense of just being really campy and over the top and silly. I think when you see it in the trailer, but when like stuff starts kind of melting around the Annabelle Wallis character, I think that's really unique and really fun, and how she's viewing everything in her visions. But the stuff around it, the stuff with the detective, the stuff with her sister and her mother and stuff like that, I didn't really find that stuff very interesting. And the character, which I'll talk about in the Ending Explains, is interesting, kind of a unique concept, but it's just not really one of those unique villains. It doesn't feel like it feels like something like you would see like The Nun or the case of La Llorona. It doesn't feel like a really well done character for James Wan, which I thought was a little disappointing in a lot of aspects, but I get what James Wan does. His movies are very slick. They're very good to look at. The quality of the camera work and the cinematography, and how he has a very Sheen-like feel to his movies, like a very 70s like House, or the Amityville Horror and stuff like that. There's there's a very interesting sense that there's a very unique technique that James Wan does in his films, but sometimes those techniques are a little overused and a little cumbersome that they kind of take away from the story itself. So I think overall, I think the last 25 to 30 minutes of this movie really makes the movie a lot better than it should be. But I think leading up to that, because this movie's like an hour and 15 minutes, it does hamper down and it does become a little too goofy and a little too laughable for its own taste. But I think there's just enough there that if you're intrigued by what James Wan does, especially with like The Conjuring and of course Insidious, I think this movie will be just right up your alley. So overall, still an entertaining movie. It just has its problems and a lot of problems and shares of issues and stuff like that. So that leaves off with like the non-spoiler review. I wanted to make it as quick as possible, you know, kind of get the notion down of what I particularly thought of the film, you know, all that good stuff. If you do not want to know anything spoiler about this movie, definitely not watch this portion. Wait till you watch it and then come back, please do. But this movie is really interesting in what its concepts are. It's a movie that really follows like the William Castle 70s techniques of horror. It's a movie that James Wan is definitely passionate about when it comes to his films, because his films have a very interesting kind of concept to them where they're more interested about kind of the scary nature of what the creature is, what the idea of Gabriel, who is the main creature in the movie, what his physiology, what his psychology, how he affects the people around him. But it also takes like the Annabelle Wallis character, you know, the Madison, and of course the other character, the sister, and allows the world to kind of twist and turn around them, kind of make them feel like they're, you know, the final girl in a lot of aspects, but they're more of just kind of gateways into our view of, you know, the horrifying nature of what James Wan presents, and that is on full display here. And so when the movie first starts, we see like this kind of if you ever seen House on Haunted Hill, the remake that came out like back in 1999, this movie starts out in like a sane asylum or a hospital of some sort, and something goes completely wrong. There's like this evil entity. The doctors are trying to stop it, and that's when the woman says we got to take the cancer out. So I knew there was something when it comes to Malignant. Malignant is, you know, has something to do with cancer, has something to do with, you know, stuff in the body that needs to be taken out so the person doesn't die and stuff like that. And so in this movie, the woman, the Annabelle Wallis character, she is unfortunately abused by her husband, who knocks her head against the wall. And in the process, she starts having these visions. She starts seeing this creature, this man, this whatever it is, starts killing people and starts killing the doctors that we see in the beginning of the film, kills her husband, and of course the police get involved, which are the most stereotypical police in the entire world. And what this movie ends up leading down to, and if you're still confused, which I don't think this movie is really not subtle when it comes to what it's trying to say, it's very in your face. This movie has one of the most unique kind of wild endings to a movie I've ever seen, because you think this creature is a supernatural being. He's able to talk to the radio, he's able to talk to, you know, the phones, stuff like that. There's a little bit of confusion about what exactly is going on, but I think it has to do with the fact that the creature can't talk, and the brain activity of the creature is causing the static electricity and the wavelengths and stuff like that. There's been, I believe, cases where brains are able to kind of because there's so much energy and electricity and so many neurons and stuff like that running through your brain, it's able to cause problems with, like, you know, certain types of objects and whatnot. So we have the cops chasing after this creature. The creature kidnaps this woman from an underground tour guide, takes them up to this attic, and we find out up in the attic is, of course, Annabelle Wallis' house. The creature's been living up there all this time, and the creature seems like supernatural. What exactly is this creature? And as the sister of Madison starts exploring, we realize that not only was Madison in this hospital, her original mother, because she's adopted, gave up Madison, but we learn what the creature is. The creature is literally it's not like a conjoined twin, but it's like a parasitic nature human being that when she was born, the parasitic embryo attached itself to her. Therefore, similar to like something like Quado this is really funny, Quado in Total Recall, she had this the creature on the back of her body. It was a human being that was attached to her, and it was causing, because they worked under one brain, it was causing her to do really negative things, really bad things. We see video footage of her almost killing her mother and stuff like that. And in the process of everything that happens, they take out most of the body. They take out what they call the cancer, and they push part of the creature's head into her brain, and it lays dormant until her husband knocks her into the wall, which is kind of clever. And what we find out is that this creature, when it manifests itself, it actually basically comes out of her head, and the way it moves is her body limbs start kind of deforming, to the fact that where she is unconscious under this like kind of spell-like nature, where she thinks she's watching the horrific nature of what this creature Gabriel's doing, but in essence what she's seeing is, in his brain, he's looking out the back of her head and he's moving backwards in her body. So literally she is a surrogate for this creature, this human being that's now a monster named Gabriel, and all the deaths she's seeing, she's there live, but she thinks she's like trapped to the floor, she's trapped in this kind of weird location. But we see the transformation happen in this prison cell, so therefore she is a surrogate to this kind of crazy creature, this crazy monster, which is really, really unique if you think about it. It's like a really creative decision making from James Wan and the screenwriters, and it's just a really kind of wild last 25 minutes where this creature in this body of Madison is attacking the police station, murdering everyone. He murders all the people in the prison cell, and basically what it's doing is it's allowing Madison to realize what's going on, to realize this creature was dormant for several years. That's why nothing happens till she gets hit in the head from her husband, and she's able at the end of this movie to control Gabriel, to put him in a cell to keep him under bay till whenever the sequel comes out, if this movie's successful. But overall, it's interesting because not only is the woman in the underground the mother of Madison, who feels stupidly bad for what she did, which she should, but what makes it really interesting is the fact that this creature is just basically another part of Madison that she has to keep under control, she has to keep under bay, and as we see at the end of the movie, it's not necessarily going to stay that way for the longest time. There's going to be a point where they're going to do a Malignant 2, and they're going to find some way for this creature to come out of Madison's body and become its own entity and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting kind of concept for a movie. It really kind of uplifted the kind of cheesiness and the B-grade level material that the movie already had, and allowed the movie to create a new kind of horrifying villain that could be an icon if done properly. Something that was really cool about Jigsaw, about Kramer and stuff like that, is he was just this person that had a tumor, and he wanted to make people kind of realize that they have more to their life than doing drugs and stuff like that. And I think that's what makes James Wan's his kind of directorialships and stuff like that really unique, because he, with like Lee Wanell and then the writers of this film, is able to create something kind of cool and kinetic and interesting and intriguing, that it makes the creature kind of just a really cool entity. But the problem is with most of his films, they're just, to me personally, I don't find like The Conjuring or Insidious that intriguing or that interesting. And when it comes to concepts, because especially with The Conjuring, it's based on quote unquote true stories and stuff like that, so they never hit me. But I think after the idea and concept of this movie, I think James Wan and his people he works with are creating some really unique, like up to date new kind of concept horror villains that like Wes Craven and so on and so forth were creating back in the day. And I like that. I like that a lot. This is very much a John Carpenter style creation, or Shane Cunningham and stuff like that, and it makes it for a really clever kind of concept. And I give a lot of credit to James Wan and company for doing what they do. But overall, that's kind of the ending explains. It's really not that confusing when you think about it, when you actually watch the movie and stuff like that. But I think overall, it's a fun idea that using kind of the dormant creature that is stuffed in the side of her brain to make it like the creature, stuff like that. And then when you kind of go back and think about how the creature's moving throughout the movie, it's really kind of a cool thing that is just like a weird kind of ability to do kind of parkour that she has created, stuff like that. I don't know, it's really strange. But like the buzzing stuff is a little kind of confusing. That might be the most confusing, because because like they don't really explain exactly how that works. But if you kind of go into like the concept of what the brain is, it's very much a magnetic electric motor. You know, the brain is very weird and still confusing how it works. But overall, that's my any explains and review of Malignant. If you like his films, especially James Wan's films, definitely check it out. It's not his best film, but it's definitely not the worst horror film I've ever seen. So, but that's it. That's gonna be my take on Malignant. Thank you so much for watching. Comments below, favorite James Wan film, what do you think of Malignant, all the good stuff. Otherwise, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find out what's coming next. If you like any of these videos, awesome, hit that like button, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.